You've got your dream home in sight and your budget's mapped out and you're ready to make it happen. But have you thought about some of the hidden costs in buying a home? Because let me tell you, there's a lot more to buying a home than just the down payment and monthly payment. But don't worry, I'm here to walk you through some of the sneaky expenses that come up when buying a home, so you won't be caught off guard. If you've bought a home, what's the one hidden cost that totally shocked you? Share it in the comments below so we can help future buyers together. The number one shocking cost is closing costs. So a lot of buyers think about, okay, well, I'm gonna buy a home and I'm approved for FHA, so I've got my 3.5% down payment, or I'm doing conventional, which is somewhere around 5% down to 20% down or even more. So buyers think about, I need my down payment, but a lot of times they don't realize what's involved in closing costs. So closing costs include the escrow fee, the title fee. If you're getting a loan, they include loan origination and mortgage costs. There's a lot of little things that can add up on closing costs that buyers don't always think about. Also, with higher interest rates, some buyers are buying down the interest rate, so that can be an additional fee that maybe you didn't realize initially. I'll break down the closing costs. So let's talk about loan fees. There's a loan origination fee, and that's typically 0.5% to 1% of your loan amount. So on a typical $400,000 sales price, that could be $2,000 to $4,000. The escrow fees in Las Vegas are commonly split, like 50% paid by the buyer, 50% paid by the seller. And the fee is based on sales price. So the higher the sales price, the higher your escrow fee is going to be. Typically, they're around $500 to $2,500 per buyer and seller each. Title insurance protects you if there was some kind of cloud on title. For instance, if there was a typo or even some kind of lien that you weren't aware of when you sold. In Nevada, there's an owner title policy that the seller must pay, and there's also a lender title policy that the buyer must pay. Again, it's based on sales price, and it's anywhere from around $1,000 to $3,000 for the buyer typically when getting a loan. A good rule of thumb for the buyer is that your closing costs are going to be around 3% of the purchase price if you're getting finance. However, the number can be much higher if you're buying down the interest rate or including some other fees in that cost. Everything's negotiable, so you can negotiate and ask the seller to contribute towards your closing costs. Now, this is very common when we have a little bit higher supply. Sellers are willing to negotiate, they're willing to pay closing costs. I see a lot of buyers that are VA or FHA that come in with a little bit lower down and ask the seller to help with some of their closing costs. That's very common when we have a little bit normal market. If there's low supply and high demand and a little bit more of a competitive market, it may be difficult to have the seller pay some of your closing costs. Hidden cost number 2, appraisal and home inspection fees. So once you get an accepted offer, the due diligence period is the time frame in Nevada that you can have to have a home inspection and negotiate repairs. A typical home inspection for a buyer is going to be somewhere around $400 to $1,000. But if you hire a general inspector and he sees other things like pool repairs, then you may need to get a more specialized inspection, like a pool inspector, an HVAC inspector, and those can be additional fees. So never ever skip out on the home inspection to save money though, because it literally could cost you thousands of dollars in the long run. If you're getting financing, the lender will require an appraisal to be completed on the home. And the buyer doesn't choose the appraisal, neither does the seller. The lender chooses an impartial person to appraise the property. Typically in Las Vegas, the buyer pays for the appraisal, and it's somewhere between $500 to $1,000. Hidden cost number 3, HOA fees. So in Las Vegas, the majority of homes, specifically the new subdivisions, have a homeowners association. The homeowners association takes care of the neighborhood. They make sure the community, common areas within the community are maintained. They make sure that the rules and regulations are abided by, which help preserve the values of the community. And if there's community things like a gate or pool, they help towards the maintenance of that. The range of HOAs really vary. I see some communities where it's $100 a quarter, and of course there's other communities where they're much more expensive. I live in Anthem Country Club, and the dues are $860 a quarter, but that includes the guard gate. It includes a lot of the common areas. So there's a lot of benefits that go into that fee. I currently have a property in escrow in Lake Las Vegas, and they have 3 HOAs, and the fees total around $900 a month. So that can be a big shock for a buyer. And so what we ended up doing on that deal is we negotiated and advertised right up front that the seller was willing to pay a full year of HOA fees. So it kind of helped the buyer move forward. We got an offer pretty quickly when we negotiated that. So there's some things to help, when selling or buying, to offer something to help towards those, but it can make a big difference depending on the community and the fees. Also, some communities in Las Vegas and Henderson, like the Sun City one, Sun City Anthem, Sun City Summerlin, have a new member capital contribution fee. And that's a big deal for a buyer to be aware of because it's a lot of money. It's 1/3 of 1% of the sales price. So on your typical $500,000 property, it could easily be $2,000 to $3,000 you're paying for that capital contribution fee. So make sure you're aware of any unexpected fees like that could come up. There's not a lot of associations that have that, but there's several that we see occasionally that if you're buying in that community, you should be aware of it. If you're not familiar with Las Vegas and Henderson, make sure you're working with a real estate agent that knows the area. I've been in the business 28 years, so when we're looking at certain things, I prepare my clients. There's an additional fee or some things to be aware of. Really can make all the difference when you work with someone who's aware of some of those fees. Some brand new agents, I'm often shocked, aren't even aware of some of those things themselves. Hey there, welcome to my channel. Leslie Carver here, your guide to all things real estate, especially if you're eyeing Henderson. I'm here to share tips, insights, and all the latest updates to help you navigate the real estate market in Las Vegas and Henderson. Don't forget to hit like, smash that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you won't miss any new videos. Let's jump back into it. Hidden cost number 4, moving expenses and immediate repairs. Hiring movers can be expensive. If you're moving locally in town, you could do it somewhere around $1,000 to maybe $5,000. So it's still pretty expensive, but somewhat reasonable. However, if you're moving across the country, it's extremely expensive. It's anywhere from $15,000 to $20,000 or plus. I have many clients that are moving back east, and it's crazy how much moving costs. I talk to those clients and say, make sure that you're not moving an older couch and paying much more money to move a heavy furniture, that maybe you could be better off just doing something new. And once you're in the home, there's some few things that come up. If you're buying a brand new construction home, then sometimes they don't include the washer, dryer, or refrigerator. You might need to purchase those. Most of the time, there's no blinds or drapes, so you're gonna need window coverings, and they usually don't include the rear yard landscaping. So those are a few things that come up pretty quickly after close of escrow that you're gonna wanna have done. If you're in a resale home, a lot of those things are included. However, depending on the age of the home, you might need to replace some of the systems that are outdated, like the older HVAC or an older hot water heater. Make sure you plan and budget for unexpected things. A lot of my clients, when buying, also want to go out and buy new furniture. So if you have a little bit of extra money in addition to your down payment and closing costs set aside for emergency repairs and even some wants, not just needs, that you might want to do once you move into the home, it can make the world a difference. Hidden cost number 5, utility setups and monthly bills. So if you're new into town, a lot of the utility companies will require a deposit to get service on. If you already live in Las Vegas and have established service but are looking to just change addresses, a lot of times they'll waive those, but obviously if you don't have a history, then you're going to have deposits required for some of the utility companies. And utility costs in Las Vegas can vary. If you're looking at the hot summer months, then utility bills can be pretty expensive. Water rates in Las Vegas on the average are somewhere around $100 to $300 a month, but during the summer hot months, if you have a pool and grass landscaping, they could easily be more. Same with electric costs. During the winter, they're a little bit lower. During the summer hot months with the HVAC, we easily see the utility bills being $200 to $500 plus. So it's something to keep in mind mind when you're moving here, just some of those monthly fees that a lot of buyers are not aware of and you don't want to be shocked about. Would you rather buy a home with a big yard and a pool, even though it might come with some higher maintenance costs, or keep it simple with the low cost and upkeep? Vote in the comments below. I really want to know. If you're buying a new home and you're looking at properties that have a lot of grass, specifically in the front yard, be aware that the water company is breaking down on that. They're offering some incentives to help you convert the grass into desert landscaping, but I have found with a couple of clients letting me know that the water company actually started finding them and kind of sending notices to them until they really had no choice but to go ahead and convert. So it's another expense to keep in mind when you're looking at homes. If the front yard has a lot of grass, you might have the cost of converting that to desert landscaping pretty quickly. Hidden cost number 6, homeowners insurance and mortgage insurance. So homeowners insurance, you pick your own insurance company, and then a lot of times if you're getting a loan, that's included in your monthly payment, but you do have a choice on who the company is going to be. So shop around. I see a lot of homeowners where they don't shop around, and the homeowners insurance costs have gone up over the years, so it can be a significant cost. I see homeowners insurance anywhere from $800 to $2,500 a year. Also PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. So if you're putting less than 20% down, many lenders will require private mortgage insurance. And what that is it's an insurance policy that protects the lender. Does nothing for you. It's an insurance policy that protects the lender if you go into default. They have a policy. So if you're putting less than 20% down, that might be another monthly cost that you have. So make sure when you're talking to the lender, if you're putting less than that down, you're aware of it. So one other fee to keep in mind that's not a full cost we're seeing right now, but we are in transition as a real estate in general. Right now, last year, we had a change where now buyer's agents have to have something signed to have their buyer pay the buyer's agent fees. Now in Las Vegas, what's happened is we make it part of the negotiation with the offer. So there's a clause in the offer that says the buyer requests the seller to pay blank towards the buyer's agent fee. For the most part, we've seen most sellers be willing to pay something or all of the buyer's agent commission. So it really hasn't had a huge impact on most buyers at this time. If the seller's not willing to pay, a common amount, then what we see is the buyer's agent has been willing to reduce. But everything is in transition. So keep that in mind as a buyer. When you're working with a buyer's agent, make sure you understand what the fees are and also what will happen if the seller isn't willing to contribute to all of those fees. Are you responsible? And we probably will see some of that if the market continues and we see demand pick up and you're in a competition where the seller may be willing to pay less and you as the buyer may have to pay some of the buyer's agent fees. So just make sure you're having conversations with your agent and you understand how that works. Now on to how to budget for some of these unexpected fees. It's important to have cash reserves for some unexpected costs or maybe some fees that you weren't aware of. If you have repairs that come up after close of escrow and you submit a claim with the insurance company, but it's not covered, or you need to have money for the deductible, it's so important that you do have some kind of emergency fund. I'm a big Dave Ramsey fan. In fact, I'm an endorsed local provider with Dave Ramsey. And Dave Ramsey, he has a lot of books, TV shows, and even a radio show about how to live debt-free. The first thing he recommends is have an emergency $1,000 fund. If you don't have anything, at least get the $1,000 fund. That way, if something comes up, you do have some kind of pad and you're not charging on your credit cards. Once you get that fee, then he recommends having 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses in some kind of emergency fund. So that if something happens, if you buy a home and you're laid off or you get sick, you do have some kind of pad to cover your monthly expenses for at least 3 to 6 months. And that way you're not finding that you're missing monthly payments or putting yourself in a bad position. If you don't have this pad when buying, then make sure once you close escrow, that's the first thing you focus on. It's better to have that sooner rather than later so that you do put yourself in a great position as a homeowner. And work with a lender and real estate agent. A great lender and a great real estate agent can really prepare you for some of the unexpected costs that could come up. The key to really having a stress-free transaction transaction is information. Make sure you're informed and aware so there really aren't any surprises. Are you thinking about buying a home in Las Vegas? I'd love to help you navigate the process and help you avoid any surprises. Please reach out. Looking for more real estate insights about Las Vegas and Henderson? Please check out one of my other videos popping up on your screen. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you on the next one.